Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Portage County Executive Forum hosted by the League of Women Voters. My name is Trish Baker, and I'm going to pull out my notes here so I don't make any mistakes. I am a member of the League of Women Voters of the Stevens Point area, and I will serve as moderator this evening for this forum. In the interest of full disclosure, I do want to mention that Jamie Gabert, one of our candidates this evening, is also a member of the League of Women Voters. However, she does not serve on the Voter Services Committee, which is the committee responsible for organizing the forum and coming up with the questions. So just a full disclosure, she had nothing to do with putting this on this evening.
True story.
Very good. A few remarks that I want to make about the position of county executive. The county executive, hang on, I'll put my glasses on, do a better job. The county executive is responsible for the leadership and coordination of the work of Portage County government, providing services to the more than 71,000 residents and the 27 municipalities of our county. These services include such things as highway, parks, and trail systems, and protecting the public through our public safety departments. The county also provides services to children, elderly, and disabled citizens through the Health and Human Services Department, the ADRC, Aging and Disability Resource Center, and the Division of Public Health. It is the mission of Portage County government to enhance the quality of life for all its residents by providing fiscally responsible services that enable the citizens to build productive communities, families, and lives. This year, the budget, the budget for Portage County is $103,874,702,000, so just over $100 million. The position of county executive is held for 4 years. It's a term that begins April 17th, 2018. The county executive's salary for 2018 will be $84,510.51. We appreciate that the two candidates for this office are both present tonight, Jamie Gabert and Chris Holman. In order to provide the most time to hear from the candidates and provide a fair and equal opportunity to answer questions important to you and this community, I will review the format, the time, and terms for the forum. This has also been reviewed with our candidates. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves and make an opening statement. They will then each have 2 minutes to respond to each question. I will say the question at first and repeat the question whenever requested. Candidates will respond first to some questions submitted by the League, and then questions from the audience. Questions from the audience must be addressed to both candidates. If you want to submit a question, please motion to one of the ushers for index cards, and we've got a couple people here. Motion to them. They will bring you an index card and a pencil, or you may have your own writing instrument. The League reserves the right to review and screen questions for relevance and also to avoid duplication. The timers are located in the front, right in front of our candidate tables. A green folder will be held up when their time starts. A yellow folder indicates when 30 seconds remain, and the red folder means that your time has expired. Candidates may finish their sentence, but then we ask you to please stop so that the next candidate can begin their response. Candidates are asked to keep their remarks germane to the questions and fair to the participants. I reserve the right to interrupt to ensure that the ground rules are observed. I'm sure that won't be necessary. The order of response to each question will be rotated. We will alternate which candidate answers the question first. The order of the opening statements will be chosen by random drawing of the candidates' names. Our reviewers, have we chosen, Jerry? Have we chosen somebody to make our first opening statement?
No, we have not.
Great. As I have already stated, participating in the forum tonight are Jamie Gabert and Chris Holman. And our first, we will start off with Chris Holman, and we will start off with a 2-minute opening statement.
Okay, thank you everyone for coming out tonight. Thank you to the League for hosting this. Thank you to the library for making this room available again. It's good to see it filled up. As many of you know, my name is Chris Holman, and I'm running to be your next county executive. And when I decided to run, I told myself that I wanted to run a campaign that I was proud of. and I'm happy to say that we've done that. I would like to thank the other campaigns for their work as well. Together, we've shown the county that there are healthier ways to go about politics. We can choose to engage on the issues, keep our heads above the fray, and to respect each other. It has been a powerful example that we've set, and I hope that others will follow suit. I'm reminded of my time in the military when we worked together despite our personal politics. There are more important things to accomplish than labeling each other, drawing lines in the sand, and sowing the seeds of division. So we focused on what mattered, poured our energy into that, and despite the Department of Defense's best attempts to be illogical and irrational, and there were a lot of them, our efforts were met with a lot of success. Our common purpose built rapport among us, it improved our morale, and it provided us with the focus we needed to get the job done. I believe we can put ourselves into a similar position here in Portage County. We have great thinkers, supportive leaders, and a lot of untapped potential. So the capacity for pointing ourselves in more genuinely collaborative and constructive directions is there. As county executive, I will lead that effort, and I will hone in on our shared values and our strong sense of community to get us there. Thank you.
Jamie.
Are we encouraging to maybe get a little closer to the microphone for us old people that can't hear very well back here?
I actually think the microphone, and this is going to be really awkward, but the microphone.
We can just talk, we can try and talk louder. Raise your hand if you can't hear us. Because these mics are for the TV, they're not for the room. Yeah.
This is actually the microphone that amplifies, and I'll tell you what, I will be happy to put this over here. There you go. Guys, you can share it. Well, it attaches to the hearing loop.
Okay.
Loud anyway.
Yes, we'll talk loud anyways. Good evening. I want to say thank you again to the League of Women Voters for hosting this evening's forum, and thank you to community media and the library and for everyone in attendance. The county executive position is an incredibly complicated and multifaceted job, with a daunting cross-section of overlapping responsibilities and programs to manage. The next executive should have solid experience, knowledge, depth, and a full understanding of Portage County's operations. Our next executive should be someone who is tested, trusted, and consistently demonstrated the ability to listen to all stakeholders and produce consensus solutions. An individual who listens and contributes, takes on responsibility, and most importantly, does what they say they are going to do. To determine who is the most qualified, one must investigate each candidate's education, community involvement, past accomplishments, and experience in positions of increasing responsibility. Because as a county, we don't have the luxury of a long learning curve for a new executive to tackle some of the most immediate issues that we face, such as the future of the healthcare center. A tireless servant with a compassionate heart and the ability to make tough decisions that may not always be popular is also a strength. Communities are led by citizens willing to serve. And as you determine who to vote for, think about who you've heard about on the news, read about in the paper, or seen volunteering in the community, proving time and time again commitment, compassion, and service to Portage County. Don't take it from me. Everything I just read were excerpts from letters to the editor written as qualities that I possess. I couldn't have said it better than our friends and neighbors already have. As a true community servant, I will strive to be a reflection of this community that I want to serve.
Thank you. Our first question, and these are league questions. I want to remind the audience, please, as you have ideas for questions, fill out a card. We have ushers on either side. Our first league question. In 2018, a number of new members will be seated on the county board. What is the role of the county executive in developing a cohesive working relationship among county board members? And our first question will go to Chris. Yes, Chris, thank you, sorry.
Are you sure?
I think it goes to, I think we opposite, so it would come to me first because he went first in intro.
Go for it.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Thank
Fair is
you.
fair. I would.
Okay, was that what you were thinking too?
Yep.
Okay.
Collaboration, I love it, thank you.
So yes, there is the potential to have, well, we will have 7 new board members. There's the potential to have even more new board members because we have contestant seats. And I think that one of the biggest roles for the county executive to play is going to be one of collaboration, communication, and also building capacity with them. Being a new supervisor, there's a lot to learn. The county has a lot of ordinances, there's a lot to know, and you will probably be only on a couple committees your first year. And you want supervisors that have had experience to also help be mentors to them and show them where they can get the information, what are the best reliable sources for information, and also to introduce them to the department heads and staff. So I really think that the county executive's role would be first and foremost to help make those introductions, to sit down with the supervisors, to tell them where they can find the information, to help communicate and collaborate with them. And this is the largest turnover that we've ever seen on the county board, at least that any of us can remember in the histories as far back as we know them to go. So this is a opportunity. I'm always a big proponent of, like, don't waste a good crisis. Like, this is a good opportunity to make sure that the way that we are educating and putting forth information, that's how people really that's reliable, good sources. And if we find that maybe there's a better way that we can do things, then we adapt to that. But it's really going to be a role of communication, collaboration, and building capacity.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I'm good. Thank you, though. It's a really good question. I mean, I've spoken with some of the people who are running for office and kind of alerted them to a lot of the issues that they're going to be having land in their lap if they do win. And I think that that's been an important part of kind of even before we get to this point, saying, you may have this issue that you're concerned about. Maybe there are 2 issues you're concerned about, or I don't know what's definitely motivating you to run, but ultimately there's going to be a lot of things that you might not be familiar with that you need to become familiar with because you're going to be responsible for making educated votes on these things. And the issues are myriad. I think it's an area where the county executive can lead by example. I think, to me, I would appeal to them to live the position. I know that not everybody can go to every single committee meeting, but I would expect, or I would actually share the expectation that on the really big issues that we're going to confront, that they should be there, even if it's not their committee. You should try to minimize the amount of education that happens on the floor of the county board meeting the night you're making the decision. That sort of thing leads to either indecision, kicking it back to a committee, dragging it out even further, and just a lot of other negative things. I also think that the Executive Operations Committee has a lot of room left there to provide more guidance to the committee and the committee process. And so working with the county board chair and other county board supervisors who are on that committee to kind of inspire that, here's how we can kind of point these individuals and, incumbents or not, or new or not, in a better direction in terms of how to, get rid of some red tape, move things along on a more kind of steady basis, establish some timelines, kind of set it up so that they have a very organized framework to work within.
Thank you. Question number 2, we'll start with Chris Holman. Within the constraints imposed by the state of Wisconsin, identify critical services which the county must absolutely maintain. And what experience do you bring to prioritize the use of taxpayer dollars?
That's a good question. I'm not sure that any one individual is going to come out with the answer to say, here's how I've determined, and I'm just going to, this is my agenda, and I'm going to make that happen. I think when you have 29 departments and you've got a lot of different interests within the communities, you need to, work with the other people. There are subject matter experts in each of these departments that we have on the payroll to be those experts to rely upon for, decisions about what needs to be prioritized within your department, or what direction should the county head in, or what are the low-hanging fruit from their perspective. And the services question is going to be very important because we're coming to a point with the budget where you're going to start asking questions and I'm not even talking about like the healthcare center and other issues that are pretty big in their own right. there's other pieces to the budgetary puzzle that you're gonna have to look at and see, should we forego this? Do we minimize it? Do we cut it? Is there a reason to continue it? And again, all that's going to be based upon what we've been doing up to this point, and then, what county board supervisors are, thinking about, because ultimately, again, and I've said this before, I don't think that the county executive should be in a position of trying to unilaterally push things. I think you can inspire, you can come up with some sort of vision to point things in a certain direction, but you need to have people buying into that, and you need to be bringing those people along for the ride. Because you can have all the best ideas in the world and all the expertise about where to spend the tax money, but if no one's going to come along with you and support you, then it's moot. There's no point to it.
Jamie Gabert, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Within the constraints imposed by the state of Wisconsin, identify critical services which the county must absolutely maintain. What experience do you bring to prioritize the use of taxpayer dollars?
So first and foremost, the vast majority of all the services that the county provides are mandated. They're mandated services. We provide very few non-mandated services, and those services really make our quality of life here much better. So I don't know that the topic so much is what services we would cut as the level of service in which we would provide. I've given the example at some other forums that, we are a level 3 health department, which is the highest level. Level 1 is what's mandated by the state. So, there might be an option of how we provide services, but the vast majority of all the services provided by the county are already mandated by the state. As far as, how do we determine which services we might reduce in level, that's really through strategic planning and process and conversations with department heads. So I have talked at other forums about the fact that we put forth a strategic plan through the county. I think we need to continue to work that document and to work with department heads on a continuous basis on work plans that they match what their plan of work is for their department with our strategic goals for the county. And I think that helps to determine where there might be the potential where levels of service aren't needed, because that's the department heads and staff are the boots on the ground who really know what programs and services are being utilized. And I think the other piece of that we can use as a community is the life report. I think that also details good priorities for us in a community. As far as what qualifies me, I have been involved in the budget process for the past 8 years with the department heads in the county executive's office. So I've been a piece of assembling and presenting the budget to the county board for the past 8 years.
Thank you. Question number 3, we'll start with Jamie Gabert. Number 3, in October 2017, the County Board of Supervisors voted to move ahead with remodeling the county courthouse and constructing a new 2-story courthouse on land adjacent to the Annex. How will this project be funded, and where does this leave plans for the county jail?
Thank you for the question. I've actually been very involved in this process. As a county staff member, I actually spent all day yesterday doing the interviews for architects that would put forth validating the plans that we've done thus far and help us move to that next step of what a potential new courthouse would look like. At this point in time, the city is vacating the county city building. They've purchased property and would build a new city hall. So we both need to talk about what a potential new courthouse would look like and what the remodeling project for the county city building would look like. The new courthouse, recent events in the country have shown us the importance of a new courthouse. We have huge security issues. We totally lack 3-way separation in the courthouse that we have now. We cannot separate inmates from the public from the staff. And it's very intimidating if you are a victim to having to use the same restroom as the person that committed the crime with you. So we really need a facility in which we can accomplish a 3-way separation of inmates to public to staff. And that's just not possible in our current facility. So the moving ahead with validating that the space downtown will accommodate our needs and what is the best way to orientate that building to make it both welcoming and connect it to the public, but also secure for the people that are using that building is going to be of huge importance. But also, what do we reuse the current county city building for? It's a great building. It has lots of historical qualities, and if we take the courts out of it, and if the city is leaving it, there's only about 10,000 square foot that's left in it of county offices. Could we temporarily relocate them and really redesign the inside of that building to have a much more modern environment and workspace for our county staff? So I could talk forever on this topic.
Chris Holman, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, thanks. I mean, my understanding of this is, I mean, I agree with everything Jamie said, really. I mean, I'll even continue on from where she left off, but an interesting piece of this is that the county board had a supermajority vote to move forward on this, which probably is the first time they've done that in recent memory. Or it certainly feels like it. So the fact that the county boards made a move in a particular direction to invest in the community, I think, can't be underappreciated. In terms of the city government building, I think Jamie's right that you'd want to take that out. The bones of that structure are very solid. If you've ever seen pictures of it before it was built, it's I-beam construction. It's something that'll be continuing to be there for another 50 years if we treat it well. To me, it would make sense to move elements of HHS into that building so that they're just going to have to walk across the street to do business rather than drive from the Guilfrey Center or have that sort of situation. I think that the people that moved, say, to 1039 Ellis, when they come back, then you're going to rearrange certain parts of the government. Maybe people in the Annex could move back over there, and then you could shift some things around in the Annex. But yeah, ultimately, it's an interesting situation because the county's primed to make some sort of community investment. Interest rates are still kind of low. So if you're going to want to make these decisions, now is a good time if you're going to do some sort of long-term borrowing. And people should appreciate that as well because it's also important that you build, I mean, to me, even if the current vision may fall short of exactly everything that people need, I think that you should make sure you give some thought into creating space that you'll need in the future because it's going to cost more to create that space rather than just do it now. And I think, again, based on my understanding, we've done some of that, and I think that it offers a good way forward on one of the several projects or areas that the county could invest in.
Thank you. Question number 4, and we will start with Chris Holman. In the past, the county board has been supportive in their commitment to programming as an alternative to incarceration and recidivism. In the recent budget, some of that was eliminated, namely volunteers in probation, which is a part of Justice Works. What direction would you like to see us move forward as a county in supporting alternatives to incarceration?
It's an excellent question, and we may have talked about this in a previous forum, but I'm going to repeat it because it's really important. Jails are notoriously bad places to go, and the saying is generally like, if you get sentenced to something and it's 364 days, beg and beg for 365 so you go to prison, because the programs are better in prison than they are in jails. And there's a lot of examples of jails that even Wapaka is not, doesn't have a really good record in terms of programs. But here we are, and we have an excellent set of programs in our jail. And I think, I don't understand why Justice Works got shifted around. It was relatively small as a budget item goes. I think it was maybe 50 grand. It was easy for the county to fund that if they wanted to. But when I met with the sheriff and I've met with other people talking about this idea, I've asked have we made sure that there's areas for programs that we're going to utilize in the future, or where can we build on programs that we have now so that they have a space in that facility we just talked about building. Because if you have a jail and you have the courthouse, to me it's a natural extension to say we have a strength in terms of where we're at now, and being able to build upon that and point a jail, which people talk about. I don't want to support the penitentiary industrial complex and all that, and I get that, but I think if you're going to have a jail be a part of that overall complex, that the more you can fold into it that focuses on keeping people out of the system and setting them on better paths, than going to jail or even going to prison. The more you can keep people in the community, keep them around people that can support them and solve those problems without the sort of headaches that we have now, and they also have. Another issue I think we could do is have like a veterans court. Other counties have that as well, where you have a lot of veterans who are going through PTS and they've got issues and they act out, and they probably shouldn't get penalized because of a mental sort of situation they've got going on. So a veterans court can address, if in the appropriate cases, how to move that person forward in the same sort of healthier path.
Thank you. Jamie Gabert, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
In the past, the county board has been supportive in their commitment to programming as an alternative to incarceration and recidivism. In the recent budget, some of that was eliminated, namely the Volunteers in Probation program administered by Justice Works. What direction would you like to see us as a county move forward in supporting alternatives to incarceration?
This is a great question, and the Justice Works funding for VIP was slightly less than $50,000. Where that money actually went to was into a position for the district attorney's office for a deferred prosecution staff member. So that deferred prosecution staff member would be able to take on more cases than the VIP agreement could have with Justice Works. That would have been deferred prosecution. What would have happened is if you were a first-time offender, it's a low-level offense, you, instead of being entered into CCAP and having to move through the court system, you would go to deferred prosecution first. You'd meet with the staff member, you would develop a plan, and provided you made right on the wrong that you did and you followed the plan that you put forth, then you wouldn't ever be entered into CCAP or have to go through the justice system, which saves an incredible amount of money in our justice system. Because every time you have to book somebody and you enter that into CCAP, not only do you put that person's name on record that they did bad, but it costs a great deal of money in our court system, even for minor offenses. So that was where that money was put to, was to that deferred prosecution position. Now, we've had a lot of conversations actually in the DA's office because our assistant district attorneys, who are state employees, are just not compensated well. They're just not compensated well. And so we've had a lot of conversations about how does the county help to increase the wages for those individuals, or maybe even add a counselor to that office to help move cases through. But in terms of additional justice programs, I also want to mention that we still partner with Justice Works on our Family Law Information Center and with our community programs in the Portage House, which are also two large contracts that we still participate with Justice Works. And this year, we also instituted Drug Court. And I hope there's a question about Drug Court because it's really interesting.
What a great segue to remind everybody. Please fill out your index cards, give them to our ushers. All right, we will move on to question number 5. And this question will go to Jamie Gabert. What do you see as the most significant change to the way Portage County government operates since the creation of the position of county executive? What further changes may still be needed?
This is an excellent question. The county executive position is now been in place for 12 years. It was put in place through referendum as a vote of the people. What do I see as some of the most significant changes? Having one central source, one go-to person within the county that just focuses on county operations. You know, previous to the county executive, there were the 29 department heads, and it might be hard to coordinate where you need it to go or where you need it to be. The county executive's your one-stop shop, your central source, your central person. I also think the county executive gives voice to rural residents. I mean, the city has the mayor and the village has an administrator, but I think that the executive position represents the whole county, and they give a voice to all the citizens of the county. And in municipalities where maybe you don't have a mayor or an administrator, they provide a great conduit to opportunities and into sharing knowledge and knowing what's going on in the county. Frankly, I think that having the county executive position cleaned up some shenanigans that were happening before then. you know, if you go back and read several articles, there were some things that were being done that maybe weren't necessarily the best options to move forward, or that represented what all the people of the county wanted. So I think that's another thing that has benefited all of the citizens of the county. And then lastly, budget development. I think of the work that we've done on the budget document and the capital improvement documents, and they're much more readable for anybody who wants to access them and be a part of that process. We've really added a lot of value added to our budget documents and capital improvement documents.
Thank you. Chris Holman?
Sure.
Would you like me to repeat it? I'm sorry.
I think I got it.
Okay. All right. Very good.
It's a long one, though. The most significant change. I suppose, prior to the county executive position existing, there was kind of a mishmash, maybe administrative coordinator position that the county board chair was serving as. And so there was, maybe some, thinking that was more easily encapsulated in the box of the county board. Statute, if you don't have the administrative coordinator, statute would say have a county administrator. I do think one of the benefits of the county executive is that you have this person who is the public-facing part of county government. So you're at different events, you're made available for questions, people can come in and talk to you, and it's a more regular thing than a monthly board meeting. And so giving the public access to that sort of an office, I think, is a positive. I think that there's some pieces to it that, like having it be an elected position can be risky at times depending on who's running. Now, luckily we have two excellent candidates in this race, but
I'll pay you your $5 later.
but imagine for a moment that you had two terrible candidates and no choice in the matter. And so to me, I think that is a risky proposition, or potentially risky. I also think that because of the elected nature of it, that some of the strengths that you might find in say, a county administrator, I'm not trying to argue one way or the other, but one of the strengths could be that you have that sort of longer-term institutional knowledge that the county board needs to function more smoothly, let's say. Where if you have a new person every 4 years, you might not have that. If you have a longer-serving county executive, then you would have that, and that could be a positive too. But it's a piece of how I would think about it. It's important that there's a check and a balance in terms of what the county board is doing, so you have another voice and another look at what decisions are being made on a policy side. But I also think that, that sort of check should be kind of an extenuating circumstances.
All right, thank you. Question number 6, we will start with Chris Holman. A difficult decision regarding the Portage County Healthcare Center will soon need to be made. What are the advantages and disadvantages of retaining the facility as a public entity? What factors are most important for you?
The primary disadvantage is the financial piece. And that's something that I think everyone is universally frustrated with. And I think you can kind of look at this two ways. It's either been a situation that's been drawn out over time, and there's been lack of decision-making, and that has resulted in a situation where now there's very few options that are good. But it could also be that the county's made decisions to not act and to not make decisions with the intent of not being in the business of providing public sector health care anymore. I think that the financial reality is really what drives it for me, in the sense that we heard about the budget being $103 million, but really the piece that we have of that we can mess with is maybe $23 to $33 million. So if now, and my understanding is the cost of operating it this year is creeping closer to $2 million, you're creeping closer to 10% of your operational levy that you're going to have to peel money away from in order to operate the center, and that 10% taken from the levy from other services and put here will not solve any of the problems that the facility is facing. You need the new facility, you need the new vision articulated so everybody knows the direction it's going to go in, so that the investment, when it happens, can be made intelligently. And then you need the operational side answers, because if you build a new facility and you still haven't solved how do you operate this thing in a fiscally responsible way, you just have a really brand new building that's still going to lose money. People talk about losing money as being an investment in the community. I could see that if that facility guaranteed that Portage County taxpayers were always going to have a seat at that table, but that's not the truth. Anybody can go there. It's part of the Medicare, Medicaid thing. And so I think you lose some of that social justice piece when the reality of it is that anybody can go to this facility. It's not necessarily only for Portage County residents, and there may be a lot of Portage County taxpayers who wouldn't be able to use that facility. So I think it's just a matter of taking, sorry. It's a good question.
Yeah, it is. Jamie Gabert, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
A difficult decision regarding the Portage County Health Care Center will soon need to be made. What are the advantages and disadvantages of retaining the facility as a public entity? What factors are most important for you?
So we've been asked this question at several of the forums, and I would say that one of the biggest advantages that we have is the proximity to the beds. We need to keep them here in Portage County. The proximity of having them here is critically important. In addition to that, we provide superior care. We are a 4-star facility. The care that we provide is tremendous, and the staff there are tremendous. The disadvantages are that it does operate at a loss, and the building that we have now is in need of repairs. But I put forth this effort to do a statistically valid countywide survey, which we are moving forward with St. Norbert's College. And they just recently came to the healthcare center and to a healthcare center committee meeting, and I think did a really good job of explaining how the survey results can be used in planning out what the potential future for the facility could be and how we educate the public on how to see that vision. So I think that we have a lot of opportunity with that survey to really tap into what that future for the healthcare center could be and how the residents value that center, because that will be a question. Do you value the center? At what level do you value it? I'm sure that most of the questions will provide options. So it will say, are you willing to pay this much or this much? In increasing amounts of levels. But we just heard for what it would be on the levy if we did go through exceed the levy limit referendum, which can only be on a fall ballot, that it's something like $27 per person in the county. So the healthcare center, having it here is of such a benefit to us. And even though the facility is outdated, if there would be a means in which through the survey we could identify what this clear vision would be, I think we need to roll up our sleeves and put in the work.
Thank you. Question number 7 will go to Jamie Gabert. The recent groundwater quality sampling project of the Groundwater Citizens Advisory Committee showed almost 25% of the wells sampled had nitrate nitrogen levels that exceed the state drinking water standard of 10 parts per million. Recent studies have also explored the impact of high-capacity wells on groundwater quality. What would you do to protect the quality and quantity of groundwater in Portage County?
Mm-hmm. So this has been a very important topic for the current county executive's office. The current county executive's office was the one who put forth in the budget the money to do the well water quality study. It was $25,000 and provided us baseline data across the county on this information. This is how we know that we have 24% of our wells have high nitrates. The statewide average is 9%. So we are substantially higher than the state. This is a clear issue for us that we need to work on. As county executive, we have this great momentum around water right now, and we need to keep it up. We have this wonderful call to action that's happening with farmer-led groups that are being organized with the Mill Creek Watershed and the Tomorrow River Farmers Group, who just met out today in Amherst, and they had a wonderful attendance. But I know that it's a state issue, and we need to lean on state government to make changes too. But I think, the government that's closest to you is the one that affects your life the most. And we need to focus on this issue as Portage County residents and try and make a difference. And one of the ways that we've been talking about is this neighbor-to-neighbor approach. So if you have a nitrate test from your well that's high, you would come into the Planning and Zoning Department, you would share those results with our groundwater specialist, Jen McNally. She would verify that you do have high nitrates, and they would work the zone of contribution to that. And then you could see, knowing groundwater flow maps, we have the science, we just need to trust in the science, where those potential zones could be, and then deal with the issue neighbor to neighbor and say, do you know that this is happening to your neighbor's well? Is there a means in which, working through our county conservationists, that we could help this, that this could be benefited or resolved? This is another topic that we could continue to talk on.
Chris Holman, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, thank you.
Okay.
This is a personal issue for me. Our well is above 10, so we can't drink our water without treating it. And so, it's something that I think about quite often. We test our well every year, so we have our baseline, and thankfully we have a baseline for the study too, or at least a good start at creating a bigger picture. And it's also kind of interesting to me that, our neighbors east and west of us have solved a lot of these problems somehow, but we've reluctantly kind of plowed along to the point where even the DNR completed this study of the Wisconsin River from like Rhinelander all the way down to Lake Wisconsin, and all of the press releases are like, this is the first time we've had this data. It's like, how could it be the first time we've had this data? So I think we need to beef up those efforts on the data side, continue with what we're doing, find ways to get even more scientific information so that, you can get that lay of the land and really understand where things are flowing underneath our feet. The farmer-led initiatives are remarkable because they avoid the punitive piece, which tends to get a lot of reaction from farmers who feel like they are not necessarily doing something wrong. And there's a lot of messaging out there that ag is under attack, and so I don't think that is true, but I think that that's something we have to keep in mind as we talk about these sorts of ordinances. And even if we were to craft an ordinance and the committee is working on theirs, there's still the issue of enforcement. How is it enforced? Where does the money come from for enforcing it? So, and this is not unique to water. There are a lot of ordinances that don't get enforced. But one thing I learned about recently is that and this is a very specific example, but Miller Coors is working with farmers out in Montana, and a friend of mine works with them to minimize inputs, minimize irrigation, and all these other things. They've worked directly with the farmers to create a value at that farm level, which then gets transmitted up the chain so that people can say, our beer is made this way and it saves the groundwater, et cetera, et cetera. And the CEO of Del Monte happens to speak Arabic, and so do I. So I thought maybe I would write him a letter or give him a call and see if I could appeal to him with maybe some Middle Eastern politics first and then groundwater second.
Very good, thank you. All right, question number 8, we will start with Chris Holman. Many cities across Wisconsin are working to attract young people. What can you offer as county executive to keep our young people that are already here to stay here?
That's another fantastic question. We were talking, UWSP is big in the news these days. Mid-State's another, seriously great resource for us. And there's a lot of young people coming out of there with a lot of energy, a lot of ideas, but once they kind of view the landscape, where could they go? So finding opportunities to capture them and give them an opportunity to stay here is important. We do have certain examples. Martin Machining is a good example of somebody who's kind of established and invested in a conduit where they bring people through a very specific and deliberate process to work with them. And so I think encouraging or kind of trying to lead an effort with local business leaders, CEOs of the call center type organizations and whatnot, and trying to think about how can we create something that's going to plug into the economy of the future, and then how can that be here and what does that look like? And I think you need to also, there's two things of this. You need to build the kind of environmental capital in the county, the human capital in the county, so that you're tapping onto the resources that the employees today want. They want to live in a community that isn't the city per se, is close to the lakes or the rivers and where they can have fun. But then they want to go to work and then retreat back to their oasis. And so I think technology has a real clear effect on the economy, and and even trying to harness broadband or telecommuter type jobs so that people might not have to be here all the time, but they're still working on something that's part of Portage County. That you're expanding that sort of envelope of where we're working from something hyper local to say like one business to a regional effort where we're trying to keep people in this part of the state and collaborating with other county governments and other people to sort of inspire the sort of investment in the community that really will underpin any sort of progress that happens here.
Jamie Giebert, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, thank you.
Many cities across Wisconsin are working to attract young people. What can you offer as our next county executive to keep this group of young people that are already here to stay here?
Young people. So I am a millennial. I'm on the high range of millennials, but I am a millennial. And I've actually provided 3 trainings on millennials to our Human Resources Committee, to our local Towns Association here in Portage County, and to the statewide Towns Association. Millennials, we view work and life very closely. I view my work kind of as my whole life. So we expect to work much longer in terms of our careers. And so we really want to feel connected to what we do, and we want to be connected to our communities in the work that we do. My understanding is that actually the state of Wisconsin is going to be investing a great deal on attracting millennials, several $1 million. And I think that they really need to focus on pieces of infrastructure. I mean, millennials may not want to own cars. They may want to use more public transportation, and be in situations in apartments with lots of different amenities that may be on second stories of buildings and in downtowns and in walkable distance of great locations of where they work and where they play. I also think that healthcare is really important. A lot of millennials are a big piece of what's sometimes called as like the side hustle. So they might not necessarily, they might have one full-time job, but they might also do lots of other things on the side. And so having a source for reliable, affordable healthcare is also really important to millennials. How would I attract them here to Portage County? I've been involved in an effort through the Portage County Business Council called New Era, Employee Retention and Attraction. Our second conference is actually tomorrow morning over at Century World. And through that, we've actually identified some goals on what millennials would like to see here in the community. One big one was different types of housing.
Thank you. Question number 9, we will start with Jamie Giebert. Downgrading our public health department from a level 3 to a level 1 has been mentioned as a cost-saving measure. Where do you stand on this issue and why?
Well, I mentioned it just a little while ago. It's just an example that I provide. It's not anything that's actually been discussed within the county. It's just one example of a service and a level of service. So our public health department and Gary Garski do an incredible job for the county. And to think about all of the things that the public health department encompasses is amazing. So it's not just restaurant inspections, but it is also a part of the piece of groundwater and the quality of our groundwater. And it's about public health and mental health issues also. So I know that I mentioned it as an example. It's not an example that's being discussed. It's just a level of a mandate of service that we provide.
Thank you. Chris Holman, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, thanks.
All right.
I mean, I think, sure, you can explore anything as an option and kind of weigh the pros and cons, but to me it seems like an odd pick to follow through with, because healthcare is such a mess that I think if the county can provide some sort of stability on the public health side and some stability on EMS side, then at least that's 2 parts of public health that the county can have a strong hand in. And while we wait for whatever the heck else is going to happen at the federal and state levels. So to me, and that's just aside from the kind of the mess that healthcare is in general, there are a lot of public health crises happening right now, but, whether it's the groundwater piece or the opioids and other things that are really affecting how people, you just live their day-to-day life, and then how the county interacts with these, increasingly difficult and, more and more people are ending up in these situations. I just think that, to downgrade this to level 1 and to kind of take that value away from the county just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Thank you. Question number 10, and we will start with Chris Holman. At the end of 2017, the governor overturned a nearly 20-year moratorium on sulfide mining in our state. An amendment to this bill gives local governments 6 months to enact their own ordinances related to cleanup and compensation for mining spills in our area. This must be done by June 2018. What actions in our county are being taken to enact these restrictions, and do you support the adoption of further restrictions specific to sulfide mining?
It's a very good question. I think in general, this is something that the county should work with a lot of other counties on to kind of raise our voice up and say, what in the heck are you doing? It doesn't make any sense for you to overturn this moratorium. What the way it was done before, put the onus on the mining companies to prove that what they were going to do was not going to be a disaster. And so kind of removing that doesn't, we just got done talking about public health. I'm not sure how that is a logical or rational decision. My understanding of where we're at as a county is that there's still kind of a question of like, which direction are we going to take? I think in general the direction should be go back to how things were. Take what the situation was and make that or stricter for ourselves. I know we don't have sort of a mineral concern in our county, but there's some in Marathon County, and I think that even if it was a county not attached to us, I think it's an area where it's an issue that the counties association should look at and like nonpartisan redistricting, get county boards signing on to signing resolutions saying this is what our ordinance are gonna look like. It's gonna be the same as it was or stricter, and just send a message back to the state too that this doesn't make any sense to anybody out here in the state.
Thank you. Jamie Gabert, would you like me to repeat the question? At the end of 2017, the governor overturned a nearly 20-year moratorium on sulfide mining in our state. An amendment to this bill gives local governments 6 months to enact their own ordinances related to cleanup and compensation for mining spills in the area. This must be done by June 2018. What actions in our county are being taken to enact these restrictions, and do you support the adoption of further restrictions specific to sulfide mining?
So yes, I support us working on further restrictions for sulfide mining. Sulfide mining is the worst type of mining. It's what it leaves behind is not a pleasant, is not something that you want to live next to. It is not a pleasant experience. Personally, I grew up in Wood County. We had the issue of frac sand mining. There are still several frac sand mines that are in Wood County. And so, my folks they don't have countywide planning and zoning in Wood County like we do. And they had lots of concerns about if there would be sand deposits found around their house and what that potentially would mean. So again, we haven't found any sulfide mining deposits here in the county. But there's always the potential with new technology. There is deposits, though, in Marathon County. So I agree with the regional approach that we need to be supportive of their efforts in addition to working on our own ordinance through the P&Z Committee, Planning and Zoning. We have a lot of acronyms in county government, but Planning and Zoning Committee has talked about this twice, and I hope at the next meeting they were going to reach out to Marathon County and other counties that have put in ordinances and ask for their examples for us to have the conversation of what that potentially would look like for us, but also to have letters of support that we would put on file to say that we support Marathon counties and other counties enacting these ordinances against the mining.
Thank you. So I should probably be wrapping up right now, but this next question is just too good not to ask. And so I'm going to ask if you could keep your answers short. In the interest of time, we will need to leave the library by 8 p.m., but this is just too good. So question 11 will go to Jamie. What is the most important lesson you have learned on the campaign trail?
Watch for dogs. And also how much people like genuinely love this community. Even people that are having a bad day or might be hesitant, they always have something positive to say about Portage County. And they have been so welcoming, people letting you into your homes just to say, even if they're in a bad situation at that moment, or like I said, had a bad day, just how positive and grateful that they are to live here. It's just really uplifting.
Thank you. Chris Holman, would you like me to repeat this question?
No, thanks.
Very good.
No, I think for me, it's been really great to just see how much people are engaged in a democratic process. You know, everybody's been very friendly. You know, even people that may have disagreed with us, something I had said, we still were able to disagree but not be disagreeable. I guess maybe the most important thing that I've learned is that you probably need to repeat yourself in many different forms so that people don't, you know, it's like a game of telephone where you say, I love apples, and then people are like, why do you love bananas? And I said, I never said I love bananas, I love apples. So, I mean, that's been a sort of thing that I've run into quite a bit, but it's been fun nevertheless.
Good, thank you. We will now move to closing statements. The closing statement is an opportunity for each of the candidates to comment on topics not covered in the questions and to wrap our entire evening up. So with that, we will start with Chris Holman. Yes.
Okay. A topic that I think should be addressed is the kind of sexually violent predator stuff we've been hearing a lot about. And, you know, I think this is another area where local control has been taken from us, and the state is providing in a situation where people can invest in housing sexually violent predators in our communities. And it doesn't make any sense. I think the statute needs to be changed. I think my understanding is that our state reps are pretty in agreement about that. But I also think that some of the requirements to that need to be changed. So like there's like a 1,500-foot minimum of where they can be and can't be. Why not just put them right next to the sheriff's department, or put them in the halfway house where no one has to run to, you know, Rosholt or all the way out to Lanark to see what's going on? There's so much common sense here that's not being taken advantage of. And so I love what Sheriff Lucas has done on this. Same thing with Representative Shanklin. I think that they've really fought the good fight for us, and I think we're finally getting some traction that will hopefully resolve that. But back to concluding statements. Thank you all for coming out. It's clear from the questions that we've heard that there's a lot of challenges facing the county. But I think we're well equipped to meet those challenges, and I think we'll grow from them. And if we have forward-thinking, solid leadership in place, I'm prepared to be that and push past the status quo that we're in and to best the challenges that are ahead of us. But even though it's a county executive, and a lot of people like to think of it as this position that can do all, I can't do it alone. So if you would vote for me on April 3rd, I think it would be very interesting to see what we could all do. Thank you.
Jamie Gabert.
I want to say thank you to the League again for hosting this second forum, and thank you to community media and the library and for everyone in attendance tonight. French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre said, "Commitment is an act, not a word." Commitment is an act, not a word. As a lifelong resident of central Wisconsin, I have worked hard to demonstrate my commitment to this community. I have been authentic and honest with you as a candidate, sharing my strong belief in the people and processes of this community, and I have listened with purpose. I still remember the day that I purchased my home here in Portage County, because I remember walking around the house and the yard repeatedly, and just knowing about how proud I was to be a part of this community. To know that all of the experiences in my life were seeds that had grown into roots, and that I could finally plant them here and raise them strong. There was no better feeling. I look around the room tonight and I see many familiar faces, people that I have worked directly with side by side for more than a decade. You know me. I have proven that you can count on me. I am the only candidate with over 10 years of local, directly related government administration experience with 8 of those years in service in the county executive's office. And I ask for your vote because I, Jamie Gabert, am ready to take my leadership to the next level and serve as your next county executive. Let me guarantee you meaningful work done day one as your executive, as the only candidate that fully knows all county operations. I ask on April 3rd that you allow me to continue my commitment to this community and you vote for a Portage County future of building community through service and Jamie Gabert. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to both of the candidates for the time and energy that they have invested in running for the office of Portage County Executive and for participating in this forum this evening. Please feel free to spend a few minutes talking with the constituents. I will note, though, we do need to be out of here by 8 p.m. As you leave, be sure to stop at at the table outside the door where they have their literature. On April 3rd, these two, along with school board members, our judges, and our Supreme Court, will all Portage County voters will have the opportunity to vote for each of these positions. The League of Women Voters has a candidate guide for national and stateside elections, which may be found at vote411.org. League contact information, including our website, email, and mailing address, is available at our League table. Also, this will be rebroadcast by the City of Stevens Point. Thank you to the City of Stevens Point for videotaping this tonight. If you stop by on the way out up here, there are little slips of paper that show when this will be rebroadcast. So let's now show our appreciation to these two fine candidates.